Well, it's a happy Wednesday again. Hello, good morning, afternoon, and evening for whatever time you are catching us today on Let's Get Real. And today is a very special day on so many different levels. Hello, Nicole. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. As always, excited to be here for Wednesday, but it does go fast. It seems like we were just on here, a day or so ago, and here we are again. But we do have an exciting show today. I'm really excited to hear this story. So, waiting for you to introduce her so we can get started.
Yeah, but first of all, before we introduce her, of course, I'm really excited because this woman is really spectacular on so many different levels. But it's International Women's Day today. So, what an incredible way to celebrate than to have our guest who is actually a very sensational woman in her own right. So, International Women's Day means so much on so many levels, and we'll talk about it once we bring her up. Now we're bringing her straight in here from Australia. We are both in, you're in,
I'm in South Carolina.
yeah, and I'm in Toronto, and it's crazy. And now we're going to be bringing Anita Nevar in, who is from Australia, coming directly from us, and it's very early in the day to bring her out. So, she's already up and going and ready. And today, let's talk about she is an erotic pop artist. Now, listen for this. Knowing her bold stance on creativity and sexual expression, understands how it feels to hide behind a mask, and we'll find out all about that. Alienated from her identity and imprisoned by shame, she was raised in a doomsday cult and cut off from the mainstream society, and she was forced to inhabit a world of sexual repression and domestic violence on her daily norms. So we're not going to wait any longer. We're going to bring Anita right up and find out what this is all about, because talk about the woman of power. Here she is. Anita, how are you?
I'm fabulous, thank you. Good morning from down under.
Well, good morning. Good morning and good afternoon from Canada and
And South Carolina, USA.
I
so
love
we're
my
all
USA
around,
peeps.
and thank you for joining us today. It was such an incredible woman to bringing on International Women's Day, because talking about bringing herself forward and expressing yourself on so many different levels. So I see right behind you, to start us off with, you've got two of your own prints. And let's tell people, these are totally done by hand. This is nothing is, sketched by that it's already been on the paper or picture or anything like this, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So these are big canvases, and one of those behind me actually stands taller than me. And I do paint them all by hand. And I'm self-taught, so that makes it even more fun because I just do whatever comes naturally.
That's huge.
Mm.
So you didn't start out being an artist, though.
No, I think I was born an artist, quite
Yeah.
honestly. The creative spark was always in me, but as far as a painter, I didn't actually pick up a paintbrush until the first time was in school, and I was terrible at it. And then when I was after I'd actually left the Doomsday Cult, which is what we'll talk a little bit more about, I picked up a brush as more therapy, and that's how I became an artist. And it just flowed out of me. Mm.
So you're talking about a cult. Tell us about your world that you grew up in and that you lived in before all of this came into being a reality of your life.
So my first memory of the cult was Mum taking us off, me and my youngest brother, and we went to some strange little house, and there was like a Bible study going on. And at the time, I was too young to realize it was a Bible study, but I just remember being in this room of all these people I didn't know. And then regularly we started going. So I would have been about 4 or 5, I think, at that stage. And then regularly we started going to these bigger attendances where there would be hundreds of people. And it was a doomsday cult. Mum and Dad were young parents. They had grown up in trauma. They had us young children, and they wanted a better life. And when this cult came knocking on the door, of course, they dangled the carrot, and Mum and Dad took it. and that created a new life for us within it. So I was in that until I was 25, and it was traumatic, to say the least. There's so much to tell in this story. Like, where even to start? But it was a life of repression, because I was always an artist. I was very creative. I was always drawing and sketching, and I was my dad's this Italian, outrageous, loud human, and I've definitely got his genes. And I always wanted to express myself, but in the cult, we were never allowed to do that, because we always had this strict set of rules. We were told who to be, who we could talk to, what we could and couldn't listen to, and everything was evil, because their philosophy at the end of the day was that everybody outside the cult was going to die. We were in the cult to live by the rules, and Armageddon was coming. So that's why I call it a doomsday cult. Armageddon was coming. Everybody on the outside is evil. They're going to be destroyed, and we're going to be the ones that inhabit the earth and live forever. So if you wanted to get to this so-called paradise, you did what you were told. And those rules were strict, I can tell you. So I never got to be who I was, and I was scared all the freaking time. I just lived in fear, guilt, and shame constantly from a young child.
Okay, so you're growing up in this type of a world, which I can't even understand, or of course, on my level, I understand, but obviously not having any involvement in anything like that, it's very hard to comprehend. How do you break out from that? Obviously there had to be a little rebel in you to be able to come out of that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really hard to break out of that. It's like, and I got the double whammy, because I married into it young, because that's what you do in there. You get married when you're a teenager, you have babies, you multiply, and you get the cult bigger. And I lived in domestic violence, because not only was I repressed, but then I married a man who used to traumatize me all the time and hit me and verbally abuse me and emotionally abuse me. So it's like when people say, trying to get out of something like that, when people say, why don't you just leave them? Why don't you leave the abusive partner? It's actually really difficult, because the amount of gaslighting that goes on, that makes you think that you're the crazy one, and especially trying to leave a cult on top of that, they tell you you're going to die. So you're actually shitting yourself. You're so scared, because you don't have anybody on the outside. You think they're all evil. Where are you going to run? Like, you're really unhappy inside, but where do you go if you go outside? So you kind of stay, because you think it's better the devil, So for me, the crunch came, and there was a few things. I had 2 young daughters by this time. I was a young woman. I was always rebelling. I was always in trouble. Every time I would do something that was against the rules, I'd be hauled into the back room and punished. And anyway, my husband, it was one night my husband had tried to strangle me, and my daughter, she was only young, and she came running out, and she was grabbing on my legs, because he had me up by my neck off the floor against the wall with my legs dangling, and I was flailing, kicking, trying to find the ground and trying to scream. And she came out running, grabbing my leg. And I just remember, as I was gasping for breath, her yelling, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." And when he let me go, some light bulb went on where I knew I had to get out. So I was scared of the outside still, but I had enough of a reason now to go. So I literally packed up. It wasn't long after that. I literally packed up secretly in the middle of the night, and next morning when he went to work, just ran with the kids.
Wow. I just can't. That's such an amazing story, but I'm curious. I know a lot of times when I read about cults, they take the children away from the parents so they can start the brainwashing very, very young. Was that the case with you and with your children?
They tried, but they didn't win.
Okay.
Because I am a determined woman, and I wasn't going to let that happen. There's no way that I was going to let my daughters grow up the way that I did and experience what I did. I wanted them to have a life of freedom and self-expression, and just not be in fear, and not be told what they can and can't like, or can and can't do. So I fought for that for many, many years. And luckily, I will say I have beautiful adults. They're like nearly in their 30s now, and they have beautiful lives, and they're very grounded, and they're very expressive, and I'm grateful that I left when I did, because they actually don't remember anything of
Oh,
that
good.
cult being so young. Yeah, I got them out at the right time.
Goodness. And, I've also heard too that sometimes they'll actually have guards, or they'll have people patrolling wherever you were at night. I don't know if it was a compound or whatever, if it's single houses, but I have read that people trying to escape, they will actually hunt them down and bring them back in and then punish them even more so. So you're more afraid to leave. Was that your case at all?
I was lucky it wasn't a compound situation. But we were watched. I will say it was still the same. It was like having eyes on you 24/7. Everybody knew where you went, who you were talking to. And, my husband would get home, and if I wasn't home, it'd be, where were you? Who were you talking to? He would find out. Like, I had to be home, the dinner made, the kids in bed. There was a strict. And if I was even caught talking to another friend at some point during the day, he would find out about it. So everybody would be watching you all the time. They knew your every movement. It was like being in prison.
Awful.
But the funny thing is, that at some point, and there was a point during that I thought that was a place of love. Like, I really thought, I was so brainwashed earlier on, probably just before I hit my teens, that once I got over being scared, I thought, I'm going to paradise. And then it wasn't until I hit my teens, and you start going through, like, you're getting your sexual urges, and I wanted a boyfriend, and I saw my, other people at high school having boyfriends and going to discos, and I was never allowed to do it. That's when the rebel started to come out in me. But for a few years before that, I actually thought that everything was good. I thought it was a great place to live. So it's a real, can I say, it's a real head fuck.
Oh, yeah.
You can't even imagine, like, how do you actually even get to the point where you actually realize that this is not the norm, or what we believe is the norm? Like, if you're living under that and that type of circumstance, that turns into being your norm of life. How do you actually figure out that it's not?
Yeah, and I think it's different for everybody to figure it out. For me, I just started being really unhappy. And because I was so unhappy, and I just couldn't live up to the expectations, and that the unhappiness drove me to realizing it wasn't the norm. Because even though I was told everybody was outside was evil, I would see everybody having fun and beautiful lives. And why are they all so happy? And why are we're supposed to be going to paradise? Like, why am I so miserable? So it was just that feeling, the empty feeling, I think, that was the light bulb for me. But for everybody, it's different. I mean, within the cult, for instance, we had a lot of suicides because the mental health within the cult was so bad. And so people would often just end their lives. And so it might be that a partner had ended their life, and then the other partner was like, what the hell, I'm out of here. So it just different experiences that wake people up, most definitely.
So that's when you started exploring a different world that you're now living in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And especially sexually, because I was sexually repressed. And I just had this, I've got the hot-blooded Italian in me.
You just can't help it.
Oh my goodness. I even remember in grade 4, I think I had like 3 boyfriends. One secretly, because I knew I'd get in trouble. So that came out of me because the fire in my belly to express my sexuality and explore that was so strong that when I ran away and I started painting, that was the first thing that poured out of me. And that's where my erotic art came from, because initially it was a form of therapy. I was just spewing up all this stuff onto the canvas from inside my brain and inside my body. And then it just took this beautiful turn of celebration when I really saw it for what it was, and when I really came into loving myself and accepting myself and realizing who I was as well.
So that's quite a journey to even come into factor of loving yourself, because you were oppressed from even having that love for your own self first and foremost. That, you know, there's so many people that live through that, but not to the extent that you've had to, where you were actually stopped from any of those type of things. How about your mother? Was she was right into all of this, where she was in?
Yeah, and sadly, she still is.
Mm.
When you leave this cult, they cut you off. They treat you like you're dead. Your family are dead to you. They treat you most terribly. And that's another thing, that another reason why some people don't leave is because they're cut off from the outside. They don't know anybody, but they know if they go, they'll lose all their family and friends as well. And that happened to me. You're really lost with nobody. You are totally on your own. And so I was really lucky. She didn't cut me off, but she's still in it and she still believes it. And she doesn't agree with my life and she doesn't agree with what I'm doing and where I'm going. And she still tries to lure me back in and say, you need to go back, you know, you need to come back, you need to redeem yourself. But she loves me deep down. She loves me. And that was the reason they took us there, is that they loved us and they wanted a better life for us. But she just she hasn't woken up. She's so brainwashed and indoctrinated, she hasn't seen the light.
Well,
So
that's a really hard thing. How does anyone move out from, especially at her age at this point now, where she's lived under that circumstance for, you know, seems like for most of her life. So it's how do you move forward from that once you're already living that? That's what you are. You breathe it. You eat it. It's everything to you in your life.
yeah, that's right. And it's tricky for them, most definitely.
And was it like a religious cult where they had their
Yeah.
own doctrine and what was right, wrong? Okay. And
Yeah,
so
it was,
that's
religious doomsday. So it's and look, I had a real God trauma thing going on for a long time. It took me at least 10 years to get over everything. Like, if anybody said God to me or mentioned religion, I just would have an anxiety attack. I didn't want to hear about it. It triggered me so badly. So they use the Bible in a really horrible way. Like, they call themselves a religious sect of love, but they really were just awful.
oh,
And they were the absolute opposite of love. So a lot of the things that I can read in the Bible now, I see a beauty to it. I mean, I don't subscribe to any of that sort of stuff, but they really just did use it in the most horrible way. So, yeah, definitely religious, I can tell you that. And they thought they were the chosen ones. Everybody else was evil, which is in itself just not even loving at all.
and so it's obviously still in existence because your mother's still there.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a long time
Yeah.
for
There's
that to.
millions of them,
Oh, wow.
all over the world.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so let's move on to your art, because that's where well, we're all part of Forbes group, and that's how I started to see, and I started looking at these really incredible forms of art that you've done. I know you've done special ones for Forbes and her husband Joshua. And like, I'm just amazed. I've watched you. So how did you get into knowing this was the area where your talent lays? And like, look at how you can do eyes, and everything's really well in forms, like for like, it's true to art, it's true, and the levels that you're doing. So how did you learn all this? Did you take some courses after along the way?
No, not at all. So I've been doing this now for 20 years and I have not done a single course. I didn't even know any other artists or know what was out in the world. How it actually came about. And when I look back, it was just always there. It was naturally what I paint, and the style I paint was naturally in me, with those fine lines and the geometric shapes behind each person and the portraits. Because I remember back in primary school, and I would always be colouring in, and I would enter these colouring in competitions. And when I would do it, every color and every line was perfect. Like, I would not go out the lines, and I would win all these coloring competitions. And when I look back on it,
Wow.
so that was naturally there. And when I ran away from the cult, I was in a shop one day and with the kids in the trolley, and I walked past this wall of paint, and something in me just lit up. I saw all those colors, and remembering that I came from a very dark world. So I was now in this world of just vibrancy and all this. I was absorbing all this color and beauty around me. Anyway, I saw this wall and I felt like I was possessed. Something hit me, and I just scooped up all these paints, every single color, all these brushes. I just loaded the trolley and I went home and I threw a canvas on the floor and I just started to paint. And that was it. It was that artist in me was born. And so I just kept painting and experimenting, putting stuff on my wall. And then a few years later, somebody came around who saw all my art on my wall, and she was working at a cafe. She said, "You need to get these into my cafe." Anyway, I put them in the cafe. Within a week, sold 5 pieces. And so the next spark in me was, oh, wow, I can actually do this as a profession, not a hobby. And it just kept going and going and going. So still to this day, I'm self-taught. I don't. And somebody advised me not to take lessons. They had said to me, don't do an art degree, don't take lessons, don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking that you need to do it a certain way. Just follow your natural ability because it's there anyway. And I think that was the best advice I ever had, because I don't second guess what I create.
No, well, I look at the pieces behind you, and where does it come from? Where do you get the vision? Do you have a way of do you meditate and all of a sudden you think you're going to do this, or where does it all start at?
They appear. It's and it can happen in a moment of quiet, but usually if it's I'm flicking through a magazine, or I might see, because they're all people. They're I think I feel an essence in a person with the portraits. And so if I'm flicking through a magazine and I see something that strikes me, it's like an instant hit. I see the image, it hits me in the heart. I feel it. I feel an essence from that, even though it's an image of that person, and I get an instant vision of what that would look like on a painting. So it could be in a magazine, it could be on Facebook, it could be, but it's from a photograph or something somewhere.
So and do you just paint people, or do you paint landscapes, or what do you? Obviously,
I've just seen
people. Okay.
Yeah, just people. I have a policy. It's funny on my website: no cars, no dogs, no kids.
Girl, no, just people.
Just because it's funny. I get so many people say, "Can you paint my dog?" No,
I could, but I won't. I'll pass. Well, I'm glad I know that because I have a dog I love. No.
Yeah, it's so funny, but because it's the erotic thing that I see. If somebody used to hand me a photo of their baby or their dog, it's the sexual expression that I feel. That's the essence I feel, and I just can't feel that in a dog, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I'm looking at the gentleman behind you, and it reminds me of some of Peter Nagel's work a little bit. Because that was a little bit of erotic and a little bit different. I like yours much better, I will say, but that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that. It was just kind of that struck me that I remember having some Peter Nagels a long time ago, and I am really drawn to the man. What is the story behind that?
Okay. Well, both these, it's funny, but both these paintings behind me aren't finished yet. I'm still in the process of putting the finer detail. So this man is Percy Cat. He is an erotic performer and model, fashion model in Canada. He is absolutely gorgeous. I just was scrolling through. Oh, yeah. I was scrolling through Instagram one day and his feed was like, wait, what? I could not stop looking. He's so just beautiful and creative and expressive and colorful. And I just saw this one image of him, and it was like that I was saying before. It just hit me. I have to paint that. And so he's got this scorpion on his chest and coming off his hat on his head. And Yeah, it's just stunning. He's stunning.
So yeah,
and then
that painting is
yeah.
stunning. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually, if I see somebody like that, will contact them and say, "Oh, love your work, love what you do. I would love to paint you." And I will. So these are not technically commissions. They're ones that I am doing myself just out of inspiration. But when I do commissions, it's the same thing. People will usually send me photos and say, "Well, these are my favorites." And then I will choose the one that actually hits me. And I know that I can visually recreate.
And the woman behind you?
That is the stunning Nicole Mitchell.
Oh,
She is blowing up all over the place in the USA at the moment, in California. And she has an interesting background, exactly like me. And we connected in a group a couple of years ago, just before she was just starting to blow up. But she's a pastor, ex-pastor turned stripper. Yeah. So she's a
How
stripper,
interesting.
life coach. At the moment, she's like one of the OnlyFans biggest creators, and she teaches sexual expression. So the same as me, having been really repressed, she now teaches and coaches people to live fully, express fully, be proud of your sexuality. And it's not a dirty thing. It's not a sin. It's our God-given, because sexual energy is God energy. It's one of the most powerful energies we have to create. And so getting people to realize that and feel that and know that that's okay, that's what she's about. So yeah, we're both in the same realms. We just hit it off instantly.
And
so
what was her name? Nicole. I want
Nicole Mitchell.
Nicole
So
Mitchell.
Nikole.
Okay. She sounds. Uh-huh.
She's fabulous, and she's just been on Dr. Phil. She's done a lot of talk shows. She's all over the media. She has this life coaching section. Like when you go to her Instagram, it's very voluptuous, and she's very expressive. And but she has this whole other. I mean, she's a mum with a few children, a single mum, and she's an awesome life coach. She really is. So she's really tapped into her power and her beauty, and I love that for her. And I love knowing somebody that's come from the same background as me, not the same cult, but the similar religious indoctrination and trauma, to actually coming out and being happy to express and inspire others to do the same. So definitely look her up. She's amazing, and she's a beautiful soul, really heart-centered soul.
because most of us in life are been taught through the years of, that if something is too sexual to, don't talk about it, don't show it. It's not good to be, even through the media, you looked at how women from, I'm older than you are, but the times where Marilyn Monroe was this beautiful, voluptuous woman, and she was much bigger than what ended up society brought her down. But and then you go into where the media is now, where the models became, well, not quite now, but maybe 10 years ago, where the models started to become skinnier, and if they weren't so voluptuous anymore, and skinny and straight was the in thing. And now we're gone back in again, where you're seeing the bold and the beautiful, and you're seeing the different bodies of women and so forth. But it's like it's a taboo out there.
It is, definitely. And I honestly, and I've done a lot of self-development, like my journey's been huge along the way as well. And the beauty I see now is it isn't even in the human form, it's an essence. It's the way somebody carries themselves and the way they love themselves. So it's not even about what shape they are or what size. It's a whole new level again on top of that.
Right.
But I love that. Yeah, I love that we can celebrate everybody in every form, however they want to identify, however they want to express. It's such a beautiful thing.
And I love that you brought up how when someone loves themselves, because they glow differently.
Yeah.
It's a very different essence that walks into a room when someone has self-respect and love. And when I look at her, I see that, because she's like subtly glancing down a little bit. And it's almost like a demure type. I can look anywhere I want. It's okay. It's really
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I love
And,
that.
and that's what it should be about in life. I've always said, and I love to, part of the confidence isn't that it's about how you do carry yourself, how you do show up for others. And that's where the beauty really is. And, I remember as a young girl, I had my very first mentor was a woman, and I was in the fashion business at that point in time, and she was quite a large woman, but you didn't really see the size of her because it was all on. What always got me was how she dressed, how she carried herself, how she could walk into a room with this big hat on, and nobody, you would just look at her in awe. And that what was so powerful. So it's not just about having a good body, and that has nothing to do with it anymore.
No.
We've finally come to that realization that it's more on the fact of the confidence within themselves, the love within themselves, feeling that you're full instead of empty.
Yeah, and I think too, when you feel that yourself, you have more to give, because it radiates out of you. You just love everything and everyone surrounding you, because you are just in such a good place of love for yourself. It's hard not to be that for everyone else as well. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Have you painted yourself?
Yes, I have. So, and that was by accident, really. And this is another really interesting story. So, when I was earlier on in my painting career, I got offered an exhibition in another town, and the name of the exhibition was called Synergy, and synergy was spelt with an SIN for sin.
Yes,
And it was an erotic art exhibition. It was my very first one. So I'd been painting all this stuff for all this time. Somebody at a gallery had seen it and said, I want you to come down to my gallery and be a part of this group exhibition. So anyway, I still was a bit coy at that time. Yeah, I was painting all this sexually expressive stuff, but I still hadn't come to a place of real self-acceptance and confidence. Anyway, at this exhibition, I met a fetish photographer, and he had this beautiful, stunning picture of this naked woman that he'd taken on the wall. Him and his model were at the exhibition, and I met them. I saw this picture and I thought, I want to do that. Anyway,
you are adamant.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to actually shed my clothes, be confident, look as beautiful as she did, and I want to do that. I kept it in my head. I didn't tell anybody. Lo and behold, a week later after that exhibition, he was advertising that he was doing these fetish shoots. And did anybody want to sign up to do a fetish shoot? I was scared because I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never modeled. I'd never been nude in front of anybody. I still was not accepting of myself. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go and I'm going to see what happens. Changed my life. I walked into that room. It was like the best, like the next level that you could go. Like I didn't go just ease into it like a nice cheeky boudoir. I walked in, he had this, it was a full fetish BDSM shoot. I walked in, I had suspenders on, lingerie. I had this big feather neck piece. In one point, he'd put a gas mask on my face because they were all into that gas masky sort of thing. Well, not all, but it's part of the scene. I had a choker and a chain, and this woman like pretending she was holding me back on like I was this wild animal. Anyway, I got these photos back, and I was so blown away that with one of them, I had painted it because it was a new expression of me, and I saw the beauty in myself and the power of myself that I didn't see before, and I was no longer scared to express myself and be sexually expressive. And that painting actually became, after all that, it's my branding and everything now. That gas masky thing that you will see in a lot of my, that's from that shoot. And that's actually me.
Well, that's a great story.
Yeah. So
And so brave, like you said, you didn't, how would you, if you hadn't done it, think how different your life would be, but you stepped over
Exactly.
that fear and here you are.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I've got a paint and sip on this weekend. I'm doing an erotic art paint and sip. It's like an exclusive one weekend only thing. And people are messaging me going, "Oh, but I'm scared. I'm scared. What are we going to paint?" And I'm like, "We're just painting." Like I stepped into a full-on BDSM shoot. We're just painting. You're going to be okay. So it's really funny the perspective now I have in not having fear with anything, and now seeing others that have fear behind that expression, even if it's they don't have to take their clothes off, they just have to pick up a brush. It's actually quite funny.
Be like going to a nude beach, for the first time, and all of a sudden having to take that off.
Yeah, that's right. Mm.
So I understand that you've gotten also some of your work has been up on walls on TV studios, or can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I've had my work on the Big Brother TV set. So one of the art directors a few years back asked me if I could actually furnish the house for the series here in Australia. So I had 5 pieces that I created for that set, and they were there for 3 months while the show filmed, which is awesome. I actually looked back at the footage again the other day and had a big smile on my face. And yeah, look, they've been all over the place. I've had stuff through the USA. I've got them in a big office, Love Honey office, which is one of the biggest sex toy companies here in Australia and the UK. We've done documentaries with Art's been in documentaries. So yeah, it's my art's had a little adventure all of its own. And I've got some bigger things coming up for it on TV sets in future, which will be revealed. So let's see where it takes us.
Wow, I'm so proud of you. You've done an exquisite job. And imagine that, not having any type of a background at all and just allowing it just to come out. And I think that's really, I commend you on that, because most people, we all, not all of us, but, it's very common that we hold ourselves back because we're not good enough. We're, like I'm one, especially in art, I never felt that I was able to draw anything, and I never had that. My talents don't lie in that area, but to allow yourself to keep on going, and I'm sure your work from when you first started out has totally changed from where you are now.
Very much so. Yeah, it's like when you're on a journey, a self-development journey, and you look back at who you were and go, "Oh my gosh, I don't even recognize that person." So I look back on the art previously, and it's just you just keep refining and you go with the flow, and you just come into your own. I think the biggest thing is believing in yourself and never giving up. And for me, I mean, there's been a lot of failures on the way. I've hit the deck so many times, but you keep getting back up because you keep following that passion. And if you just keep believing in yourself and keep going, it's amazing the beautiful things that come out of that. And the lessons that you learn from the falls are huge.
So let's talk about this, because you know what? I've always felt that, I've had some major falls in my life as well. And it's those lessons that I've grown and actually astonished myself the most from. Tell us about a lesson or two that you have, because I know that so many people out there have those falls, and then it scares them that they're afraid to move forward because, it's something that does actually hold them back. How do you keep on going after you've had some of your major falls? And listen, getting out of even where you were is a major thing that you always had. You had to obviously have some major self-doubts right before you began.
Absolutely. And I've recreated myself so many times. It's not just one fall, and that can be the illusion. Oh, you have the big fall and then everything's okay.
Yeah.
The big fall then might lead to you start getting somewhere, and then you have the next big fall, and then you make progress, and then you have the next fall. So I think it's just a constant learning and a constant growing, because everything that happens teaches you something. So for me, the first big one was obviously leaving the cult and recreating a whole new life. And I was broken. I was such a lost young woman trying to be a mother, trying to find out who I was, trying to survive in this world, we weren't educated, trying to get work for myself. And so that was the first one. I think I didn't doubt myself then, because I just I had to go. I had no choice. I just had to get out of survival and create a new life. It was actually harder for me, as hard as all that sounds, having the falls that came later. So
Wow.
so at one point I went to uni, because I was a dental hygienist for many years, and I left that to actually pursue my art full time. But I went to uni, I created this world where I was making a lot of money, I was very successful, I was in the corporate world, but I wasn't living my passion. So I hit this crossroad where the art was calling me. There was this passion and substance there, but I was living in survival with my corporate job, because that's paying the bills, and so I didn't want to let that go. And I ended up having this massive nervous breakdown, because that was the universe. Because the universe kept tapping me on the shoulder, going, "Come on, Anita, it's time to get out. It's time to follow your heart. Time to follow your passion." And I didn't listen. And I got to this point where I just had this major breakdown, and I was forced out of it, out of dental, and not forced into the art world, because I was always going to do that. But I broke down so bad that I couldn't get out of bed, and I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I had nothing left in my soul. And and so there was the first big breakdown, but I still kept going. Whereas this breakdown, it just disabled me completely, because everything I had been building and thought I was being successful, I've got this great job, making great money. Why am I still unhappy? Why am I not I wasn't serving my soul? And so I thought I'd failed, and I just wanted to give up. So the biggest thing for me in times like that, and other times it might be little failures. I've been standing on, corners, bawling my eyes out, and art's gone missing, and I can't get home, and at an exhibition and nobody turns up, and I think, what am I doing? It's all wrong. I've made the wrong choice. Coming back into the quiet, I think for me, is the meditation, reconnecting with myself, and realizing that the universe has my back, trusting it, trusting the flow, trusting the lessons, and just going within. So for me now, and I still have my blips, I still have days that aren't, no day's perfect.
No.
But if I feel myself going down a trajectory of, I've made a mistake, I shouldn't have done that, am I following the right path? I just sit down every morning with my gratitude journal. I write everything I'm grateful for. I meditate for 10 minutes. I get quiet, and I just listen and feel within my body and in my soul what comes next. It's almost like I get divine downloads now. But it's that quiet space instead of that. And I'm busy, but it's not a stressed, frantic busy. It's not living in, it's a calm busy, which is really nice, a knowing busy. So I think the gratitude, the affirmations, and the meditation has been my saving grace. That's what I would definitely encourage everybody to do, is get into that quiet space.
And, you're talking to two women that are totally, we're right with you, because that's of our lives as well.
Absolutely.
How we've both grown and gone through some of the horrific times in our own lives. And, and that's what this part of the show is about, is, we didn't just appear to be the women we are today. It wasn't an accident of this happening in our lives. It was the fact that we took control of, when you fall, you feel the fall, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
You gotta be real with yourself. And that's the whole thing about life is, especially young people, men or women, walking, because I don't believe that our messages are just for women. It is International Women's Day, but actually I was going to go do a live and say, I want to also, tell men that how much that we appreciate them for who they are. Because if we can start living a life where we can start to become kinder and having more love for one another, then it's a whole cycle that keeps on going round. So if we can find more kindness and lovingness in our hearts to say to about men as we say to women all the time, then it will come back at us too.
Yes,
And
definitely.
it becomes a ripple too, because we've not taken someone out of the equation, we've pulled them in to include. And when you have inclusion and self-love, that's when everything flows. And Anita, you're absolutely right about one thing though, is the universe will literally push you down sometimes to get your attention. And
Yeah.
you have knees that are scabbed and teeth that are chipped, but it's like, man, you're not listening. You're not listening. And it will just shake you to your core at times.
And you do get those messages. Like I think as human beings, we're taught to not listen to our gut instinct or trust our heart. And so when you look back, when you've had a massive fall like that, and you recover and you look back on it, you realize, oh God, I was always getting the messages to change direction and I didn't listen. And the Mack truck ran me over. So we're always getting, we're always, we know we don't realize how powerful we are and how protected and loved we are, that we need to be trusting that more.
Absolutely.
So,
we've been so conditioned to look outside, and it should just be the opposite. We should go inside and just sit in our silence and just wait, because the download will come and it will always be right.
Yes.
And that way we save ourselves the skin knees.
Sometimes
we don't need Band-Aids and stitches and teeth caps and all that stuff. So absolutely.
And people often ask me, am I upset by my growing up in a cult that I missed out? And you know what? I am actually really grateful for my breakdowns and my experiences, because I see them now in a way that they have made me who I am. I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not have had that journey. So anything that happens to us, we're not victims to it. It doesn't define us. I look at everything now, if something's not ideal, and go, well, what am I learning from this? How can I be a better person from this? How do we move forward in a positive, beautiful way, instead of it breaking us into a victim status? Because that serves nobody.
No, because when we rise up to meet it, we can help others with it, with everything we've learned, because there's always someone coming from behind that might need to catch up with us at some point.
And I truly think that that's part of how we become our own genius selves, from those incredible learnings. And, hopefully, somebody who is even going through listening to this broadcast afterwards, that they maybe are going through something where you have gone through, and know that you've gone through it now, and they might want to reach out to you and say, well, how did you find that courage to be able, because I think that's part of the whole thing about life is it's the confidence is not what we are born with, but it's that courage to, like, for you, to that courage to leave, that courage to give up your corporate life and become, this artist that who obviously is screaming out, and otherwise you wouldn't be producing these gorgeous pieces from that. So finding the courage to move forward is really the number one thing, I think, in life that we need.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the first time you do it, it's scary, but the more you do it and the more you trust that flow, it gets easier and easier. And then it almost becomes like, I get a download now and I don't even second guess it. Yep, got to call this person, got to go here, I'm going to do that. It's just like it's automatic now, because I know that it's the right thing. So it does get easier. You have that courage and you step up, and it just builds more courage. So it's definitely more power to you. And look, another thing I wanted to touch on before too is about loving, because you were talking about loving and having a world where we're all kind to each other, men, women. Doesn't matter how you identify or who you are. We're in a world of love, and I now see where it's called the law of oneness. We are one with everything, whether it's human, whether it's animal, whether it's plant. Like I go out now and I've got this beautiful plant that's shaped in a heart, and I talk to it every day. I go out to my garden and I talk to my veggies. So this love radiates not just for people. We are in a universe of oneness with everything. And when you reach that space, oh my goodness, it's just the light is so bright. It's so beautiful.
Everything's enhanced, isn't it? It's like touch, smell, heartness. Everything is just, it's amplified by like 1,000.
Yeah. And I see that too now. I think that's why I connect with my subjects in my art so strongly, because they don't have to be in the room. I just feel some sort of essence or some sort of love or power, whatever that is, that sexual energy radiating from them. They can be on the opposite side of the world, but you feel it. We're all connected.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I love this.
Mm.
So can you give us a website where people can come and see your work? Because, you know, I can't talk highly enough about it. It is magnificent.
Amazing.
And I want people to look at it, and it is for sale. So there's pieces there that people can buy, and you will ship across anywhere around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I ship everywhere. So, and commissions as well. If anybody wants to celebrate themselves and or celebrate somebody else, commissions are a beautiful way to do that, to capture the essence of somebody you love, or look at yourself on the wall, because and I know this when I created the painting of myself, when you actually look at yourself outside yourself, it's like, wow, you see things in yourself that you hadn't seen before.
So she's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's a beautiful present to yourself, and it's so unique and exclusive. Like nobody else has that on the planet. That's all yours.
Yeah.
So yeah. The original canvases, original paintings, definitely commissions, and I do limited edition prints as well. So my website is Anita Nevar, which is Nevar is spelled N for Nelly, E for egg, V for Victor, AR.com.
Okay. And
it's Raven backwards.
We'll be having the link down below for people so that they can go there and see that, and whatever, you know, people decide. But just, I want people to take a look of your work, because you do all different types of work. It's and some things that you'll just stand there and just look at all the different types of work that you do. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's definitely not landscapes. It's people
or dogs. There's no dogs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it has a common theme, and if it's not the sexuality theme, you'll see I have a genre with because I love music, and music is something I was never allowed to really listen to in the cult, because all the lyrics were there to corrupt us. So when I left, I dived into the live music world and would go and see bands and dive into mosh pits and dance festivals. I just did it all. And so I paint musicians as well, because I love a good DJ. I love a good rock star. So it's that, but there's that sexual energy behind the music as well, which is beautiful. So there's those two genres. Even though I'm known as the erotic artist, I also paint people in the music industry too.
Well, isn't that what really brings out our souls too? Like, I know that once music starts going, it changes your mood. It changes your whole presence of yourself, right? Even the look of yourself change, because it brings out that all different feelings from you, even those naughty feelings.
That's right. Yeah.
Glenda.
Oh, look. Oh, yeah. Glenda's definitely danced around naked to music. I know that. We all have.
What can you do? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, when that one song comes on, no matter what state of dress or undress you're in, you have to go for it.
Yeah,
well, you know, music brings out the savage beast in you, and it's true that, you know, that saying is so true, because there are some, you know, song. Everybody has different music that really changes them, that tips them, that gives them that eroticness or whatever it is. You know, I have my own songs that when I'm feeling low, I listen to it and it gives me that power that you need to sometimes that you need to pull that power in to move forward, because you might be feeling that time when you don't have that power within you.
Yeah, that's right. And look, honestly, I couldn't create without music. I have music going all the time and I listen to all sorts of genres. It really does. The energy behind music is just beautiful. Mm.
So we're getting to the end of our time here, and I told you time just flies by.
It does.
Right. And I am very grateful for you to come in and join us. And I know it was a very early start for you this morning because it's early and where you are. But, you know, for people that have been going, like maybe going through difficult times or can't find their place in the world or whatever it is, what special message could you give to people that are maybe just going through their own difficulties?
Is know that, and this is one thing that I realized later, is know that no matter how hard it is, you can always change direction and create the life you want to live, the person you want to be, the love you want to have, whether that's for someone else or yourself. You are a powerful being. You can be, do, and have anything. So use those times where you're feeling lost to just get quiet, get out in nature, just connect and just love yourself. And it will all flow into place.
Beautiful message. Beautiful. And I love it. And I thank you so very, very much. Nicole, what passing gifts do you have to give to us today?
Well, I just want to let Anita, this has been amazing to meet you, to see your artwork and to listen to your philosophies. And I actually couldn't agree with Anita more, because you hear her story of coming from a cult. And I can't even imagine a rockier start to life than that. But one thing that she realizes is we have something inside of us that we come with when we're born. It's just our path. It's our desire. It's what our heart is telling us we want. And she followed that. And it's just worked out beautifully for her. But we all have that inside of us. And we're all so conditioned at times to do things that other people think we should. We're not listening. We're not following. We're not going out in nature and grounding ourselves on the grass. We're not hugging a tree when we should. And if you just take the time to sit in silence with yourself, I can guarantee you will hear and find and or feel your answers. And, for me, it took me a long time also, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it to find you and your passion and create the self-love that leads to following your heart, but it leads to that ripple for helping others. And when you love yourself, it emanates out and it changes you. And people are going to look at you and say, I want what she has.
Yeah.
So it's just, this has been a wonderful interview. Thank you, Anita.
Oh, thank you both. My heart is full being here together and sharing this with the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today and for being such a beautiful guest. And, I knew it. I saw it from the moment I met you, that the beauty just flows out of you with such extreme. I love it. And I send you my love, and I hope you can feel it all the way to Australia. Thank you.
I do. Thank you.
An incredible woman today. For International Women's Day, for me, it's more about being sending love out to everybody, but also to men too, because in our world, we are one. And when we can shed some kindness, happiness amongst women and men, it would be a very different world. And maybe people, instead of hurting one another, they would think twice and maybe feel the need to actually love one another instead. And what a beautiful world that would be. And for that, I say today is actually International People's Day. Love yourself. and send out love to all. Thank you so
Wonderful.
very much. And I look forward to coming on next time and sharing some beautiful stories with you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.